Well, let's get to our first discussion. Over the years, the manufacturing sector has been battered by numerous challenges, which have reduced the number of industries in Nigeria and converted industrial hubs in many parts of the country to warehouses of imported goods and event centers. According to the Manufacturers Association of Nigeria, broadening economic challenges ranging from rising diesel costs, poor electricity supply, shortage of foreign exchange, among others, have continued to hinder the growth of the Nigerian manufacturing sector and are causing fears and uncertainties to the survival of operators, of course, manufacturers. To discuss this and other burning issues affecting the sector, I'm being joined live from Lagos via Zoom by the Director General of the Manufacturers Association of Nigeria, Mr. Segun Ajayi Kadri, MNI. Thank you so much. It's good to have you on the show.
Thank you very much for having me.
Yes, I know there are a lot of issues. I listed some of them in my introduction, but I want to ask you this question this way. It seems like it is a global issue, so that is part of what we are suffering from. So Nigeria is not insulated from all of these issues that are happening globally, hiking the price of crude, hiking the price of gas, diesel, and all of that. Why is Nigeria's case so special?
Well, thank you very much. It's a global issue, like you mentioned. And why Nigeria is peculiar is the sense that we do not seem to have a strategy to respond to that global phenomenon. We do not have to go down because there's war in Ukraine, between Ukraine and Russia. And so what we have highlighted and which you reeled out is how it is impacting our economy. And it requires that we as a nation should pull together to be able to have a plan to make us to survive. We are asking for a strategic meeting between the government and key players in the productive sector for us to see how we can mitigate these challenges. Otherwise, and like we have indicated, having suffered 2 consecutive quarters, the effect, the strains on the manufacturing sector is becoming dire. And if nothing is done, we don't know how the sector is going to look like at the end of the 3rd quarter. Already, members are downsizing. Already, members are no longer finding it profitable to produce because inadequacy of power is being compounded by the high cost and the unavailability of diesel, which is the readiness alternative to electricity supply in our industries. And you see, Tolu, the major thing here and why it is so dire at this time is the fact that this is coming along with other familiar challenges that we've had. There has been no letting on Forex, in spite of how we have demonstrated that the manufacturing sector remains the only sector that can give you the quickest solution to the Forex scarcity in terms of sectoral contributions, apart from the oil industry, which is contributing only little to our GDP. If you give a manufacturer Forex, what he's going to do with it is that he will import raw materials, spares, and machines that are not locally available. He will bring them in, produce, sell, and be able to export and earn foreign exchange to swell our reserves. So it is critical that we prioritize allocation to that sector. So you see, when this is lacking and we are having to buy Forex at 620 naira to $1, it becomes impossible for us to produce and be competitive. Now, if you add this one to the high cost of production itself, which has been exacerbated by the price of diesel, then you have a killer in the sector. So that is why the complaint is becoming more stringent.
Brilliant. DG, let me follow up with your request saying that man wants federal government to grant some manufacturers licenses to import diesel from Niger and Chad. We know what's been happening, which part of it is the FX scarcity. And now you're thinking that manufacturers can do this on their own. Do you think they have the capacity to do this? How do you think this can happen?
Yeah, it is not something that we like to do. We are not importers of diesel. But what we are looking is just anything we can do to enable us to overcome the current challenges. The borders in the areas are not completely open for business in the sense that there's free flow. So our members in the north actually felt that there could be some relief from that part of the country if we are able to import from there. So, I mean, that's the basis for it. We have also asked that the VAT, 7.5% VAT on diesel should be removed, and that we should continue to find ways around it. But, you know, because diesel is a product that has been deregulated, there is very little, and we admit that government can do in terms of improving supply, since we do not, our refineries cannot give us what we need locally, which is actually something not to be proud of. But I mean, that's the reality of the situation. And if you are talking of resolving the issues now, you need to look at practical measures that can in any way, in any shape or form, reduce the current level of pressures that we are having on the sector. I mean, Tolu, what is also worrying here is the fact that, particularly in the Northeast, the insecurity there is making manufacturing almost an impossible task there. People cannot go to their factories. So the capacity utilization in that, especially in that part of the country, has gone down drastically. So something has to be done, I mean, to ensure that this does not continue. If we cannot be fighting insecurity or swelling the ranks of the people that may go to fan the embers in that sector.
Great. I was also thinking while preparing for this interview with you, there was a time where we talked about willing buyer, willing seller. We had some markets and some strategic places, maybe industrial places that were to maybe be outside the grid or will have special focus and they'll pay more for electricity. Do we still have any of those initiatives on? And if we do, any impact on the sector one way or the other?
Well, you know, we had the eligible customer scheme, which was a brilliant idea that those who take more than 2 megawatts of electricity will be able to access it without necessarily going through the disco that has been riddled with inadequacy, high cost, and unreliability. But you know the story, Tolu. What has happened is that it has become very difficult for our members to even access it. And those who have accessed it are constantly under the threat of it being taken away from them. So there has to be a deliberate attempt to make sure that the bottlenecks that are being placed on the way of more and more of our members to take advantage of this brilliant initiative, should be removed. In addition, alternative source of power does not come cheap. And like I said to you before, 80% of our members are small-scale industries. So the cost of conversion and even the price of gas that is also rising is waiting in the wings to remove the advantage that we should have gained from it. And you know, I don't operate in a vacuum. I compete with products from other economies where they are not required, to start seeking this alternative source of energy that is more expensive. At the end of the day, it is the price at which I sell my goods in the market that matters. And power is about 30 to 40% of the cost structure of my members. So there has to be a focused attention on how to reduce the pains that is felt in these areas.
I know, DG, we've talked about this before now, backward integration. I know that word is something that we'd always talk about. But at this point, we have to just face the reality. It's staring us in the face. And we see that there are supply disruptions here and there. Russia and Ukraine war is also something we have to contend with. So are manufacturers that can look inwards? Yes, let me ask it that way. Those that can look inwards, are they doing that at the moment? So that we can even reduce this dependence on this FX thing.
Yes, certainly we are. In fact, it has become a matter of survival, enlightened self-interest for you to backward integrate. And so many of our members are doing it, even in the dairy industry and in the food and beverage industry. We have a lot of our members, and we are actually working with Raw Material Research and Development Council to be able to expand, the horizon in terms of sourcing our raw materials locally. But you have also said it earlier in this interview that most of our members, the farms that they have established, for instance, they cannot go there because of the insecurity. So if one may put it this way, internationally, the Russian and Ukraine war is limiting logistics and supplies. Internally also, we have insecurity that is limiting logistics and supplies. So we have a more or less a lose-lose situation as we speak. And that's why we have said what is critical at this time is for us to even have a conversation. And that's why in the statement we mentioned, we asked for maybe a conference for us to arrive at a sustainability plan that will allow production to go on in spite of the global supply chain challenge that we are having. There has to be a deliberate attempt. So you cannot resolve all the issues, but known and familiar pain points, we can wind down on those. And there are those we'll be having several engagements with government, and we have solutions that we have suggested. So I think it is now time, for us to take another hard look at it and know that it has become a matter that we need to address. It's not only with manufacturers, but other players in the productive sector that needs to take our economy, that is dwindling, out of the woods.
Let's wrap up on this note. DG, where do we go from here? Manufacturers like you have had projections before the start of the year when diesel was about 300 naira a liter. Now you're buying that at about 200% hike. What do you think would happen to manufacturers moving on this year if things remain like this? My major worry is unemployment.
Yes. It is a member told me yesterday that they have moved away from projection. They have moved to survival mode. So all our projections before this, I don't think there's anybody now who is still operating based on what he has projected. What we are now doing is how to be able to stay afloat and not to lose the market share that we have, because we are in competition with imported products, even in our own market. So it is all the projections have been taken off. Power is between 30 to 40% of your cost structure. So no matter what you have done between October and December last year in terms of planning, everybody has gone back to the drawing board, and you are seeing those other areas where you can reduce costs, because it all boils down basically to, apart from insecurity, it boils down to the cost of doing business. So what should be done actually is to deliberately target those other areas where you can bring down costs. And then, like I said, it includes the cost at which you procure forex. It also includes the compliance cost in terms of how the regulatory agencies bring down on our members. Then you look at the multiplicity of taxes and levies that are collected by different tiers of government. And then for us to see that we do not have something that complicates the challenges that we know we can do very little about. That is the way forward. Otherwise, the loss of job that you fear is actually a growing reality that we are seeing, because having gone out of stock, what members have been doing in recent times is, one, to reduce production because they can't run 2, 3. Those that are running 2, 3 shifts have reduced it to 1. And by the time they finish the stock, maybe in the next two months, moving to the end of the third quarter, you have to ask your workers to go home if you can no longer produce, because it does not make sense for you to produce what you cannot sell. This is also coming at a time that the average Nigerian disposable income is dwindling by the day because of the inflation and the devaluation of the Nigerian currency. So you have low patronage and you have constrained production. I mean, to a manufacturer, that is a disaster. So I think essentially we can only look forward to the problem being resolved, not that it should continue. I mean, this should not continue till the end of the year. I'm not able to make any projection as to what shape the manufacturing sector will be at the end of the year, if nothing is done urgently to at least reduce those areas where our operations are being hindered.
I must thank you so much for your time, Director General of the Manufacturers Association of Nigeria, there, Mr. Segun Ajayi Kadri. Thank you, and do enjoy the rest of your day.
I hope I can. Thank you.
Hopefully you will.